Hi, I'm Roger Rod, and I've been a professional poker player since I was 19 years old. It all started my senior year at Stanford University, and I mentioned my status as a Stanford graduate not to be self-serving, but I think we all know that that's a pretty pricey school, and I'm not exactly what you call a trust fund baby. But I was fortunate enough to have a scholarship that covered everything but room and board. So my first serious entry into poker was beating the frat rats in my fraternity house. In short, if I didn't win, I didn't eat, and I slept on the street. Well, after that worked out, I started to seek out and find private games all over California, and once I found those, I found my career. When I first hit the streets looking for games, the only public card rooms in California were just that. There were no mega casinos like the Commerce. They were card rooms where they only played 3 games, ace to 5 lowball, draw poker, and pan. 3 games that are now, thankfully, in a museum. But those games, I learned the very first hard lesson that you need to, which is I was a very poor ace to 5 lowball player and a very solid draw poker player. But the problem that I had was my ego. I wanted to play the biggest games in the house because I had to be a hot shot. The first thing you find out, check your ego at the door. Play the game that is healthiest for your bankroll, and that is your best game. Then came my first professional trip, 1977, Las Vegas. That's where I found out that I was what they call a hometown boy. That meant back home, all the suckers called him a gambler, but out in Vegas, all the gamblers call him a sucker. Took a very hard lesson, lost everything I had, my entire bankroll. At that point, you have one of 2 choices. You can either do what everyone usually does, which is blame cheating or bad luck, or you can take a good solid look at your game and realize I got outplayed. I fortunately chose the latter and became a student of the game, and that's where it took me to the next level. Taking the lessons that I learned from the card rooms of checking the ego, I realized it was time to go back to my hometown, take my new skills, read a lot of books, did a lot of studying, and upped my game to the level that it finally got to in 1980, which at the same time, coincidentally, all the private games dried up. That meant it was time to move up and see if I could make it in the show. I went to Las Vegas, and this time I was ready. I was able to play with the big kids, and I considered myself at that point finally to be a real professional poker player, circulating between the Tahoe, Reno, and Vegas circuit. Back in 1980, though, there were only 2 major poker tournaments per year. It wasn't anything like it is now. You couldn't find nightly poker tournaments in any card rooms. Hell, you couldn't even find card rooms. But the reality of it was there were 2 major tournaments. There was the Slim Tournament that was also called the Super Bowl of Poker, hosted by one Mr. Amarillo Slim. That came right towards the end of football season. And in the springtime, the Binion's Horseshoe Tournament, the World Series of Poker, the one that still remains today. Those were the games that we looked forward to. Fortunes were made, fortunes were lost, but primarily back then the house was compelling you to play limit poker. The only time you got to play no limit was when you were at these games in the side games during those major tournaments, because the rest of the year the house had compelled all people to play limit poker because no limit was not a very good house game. Now I mention this because as I had started out as a no limit player almost exclusively, when the house fairly removed no limit from the agenda, you had 2 choices. You could either learn how to play limit or you could get a job, and I wasn't about to do that, so I did learn how to play limit. Then came what we call 1987, the gold rush. Poker came to California. No longer was it just low ball, draw poker, and pan. 7-card stud and Texas Hold'em became legal to play in the state of California, and everyone came literally from all over the planet, all over the country. They came to learn how to play and to play Texas Hold'em in a California casino. That gave birth to all of the major clubs you see in California today. About 7 years ago, Texas Hold'em came to TV, and for a long time it turned into disco dancing. Everybody in America was talking about Texas Hold'em, a game that at one time I could have been in a 100,000 person stadium and said, anybody in here knows how to play Texas Hold'em, I'll give them a blank check, and I'd have walked home with that check every time. But now it's become a popular game to a level it's never been to before. People all over the planet are playing Texas Hold'em, and that's what we came here to talk about today. As a player, probably the best testimonial that I can give to myself is I have stood the ultimate test, and that's the test of time. There's a whole lot of folks in the last few years that have become mega TV stars in very short periods of time that are now hawking their bracelets and are broke. Because if you don't know how to play this game, it will catch up to you. The fundamental axiom of poker If you continue to take the best of it, you will win. If you continue to take the worst of it, you will lose. The luck factor is short range only. As a teacher, probably the best place that I could refer you to are my students themselves. The testimonials are found on my website. I have taught a lot of celebrities and become what is known as the instructor to the stars. However, I am not a kiss and tell operation. I protect the anonymity of all of the folks that come and take lessons from me. And those that are going to be here today, you know who you are. No honest or ethical poker instructor will ever promise to make you a winning player, but I will promise to teach you what it takes to become one. I live by two simple rules: learn how to play and learn how to win. Thank you for watching. I'm Roger Rod, and I'm your poker expert for Professorit.com.